It's a great pleasure to welcome to BBC Radio Scotland Paul Jones. How are you?
I'm extremely well, thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be on with Billy Sloan.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm glad to have you on the programme. We're backstage at the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall, and in about 90 minutes' time, you're going to be playing a bunch of songs which, like artwork or fine wine, seem to get better with age. When you look down the set list, what goes through your mind?
Not a lot, really. No, but Manfred, who we never see these days,
yes,
but we do communicate, decided that it would be a great idea to put out an album which is called Manfred Mann Hits from the 60s. All the hits with the first lineup, which I fronted, and the second lineup, which Mike Darbo fronted.
Yeah.
It was programmed to come out this autumn, and somebody, it wasn't me, said, well, that's our 60th anniversary, so we'll tour with those items available. So we just thought, yes, great, let's tour. We do these tours in sort of September through to November, or maybe a bit of December, every other year.
Yes.
And have done for, 30 years or something. We always have a guest. But when we did our 50th anniversary tour, which must have been 10 years ago, in other words, 2013, we decided that it would be really good just to do it ourselves with no guest. And the promotion company at first were a little bit alarmed, but we said, promise you, it'll be just as full.
Yeah.
Just as full. And it was, if anything, better. So we've had guests ever since. But now that it's the 60th, we thought, hey, there's enough hits there to take over 2 hours to play, and we don't even do every last one of them.
There's the album is called, I've got a copy of it on the table in front of me, Hits from the 60s, Manfred Mann, and there's 20 tracks on the CD, and it's a very rare case of all killer, no filler, because when you look at every single song, everyone's a classic song that you recognise and remember from the 60s. Do they bring back good memories for you, particularly the songs that you were the vocalist on?
Well, I couldn't honestly say, Billy, that it brings back memories at all, because we've been doing those for 30 years now, ever since Tom McGuinness's 50th birthday. And in about 6 weeks from now, he's going to be, 82? So we started on his 50th birthday, not envisaging playing this way for the rest of our lives, but he said, I want to put together, to celebrate my 50th, every band I've ever been in.
Yes.
And he nearly succeeded as well. But there was a missing band called the Roosters, because they had 2 guitar players. Tom was one, and the other was somebody called Eric Clapton, and we couldn't find him anywhere.
Never heard of him.
No. Anyway, so he got what was left of the Roosters, and of course, Manfred Mann Mark I, as it were. Or Chapter 1, Manfred calls it. Also, McGuinness Flint, which was what Tom did when the band finally broke up in 1969. And, of course, the Blues Band, which we started in 79. And that ran for 42 years, 43 years. It is no more, but 43 years is enough.
And celebrating your 60th anniversary with this tour, I guess that you've got the full approval of Manfred Mann himself. Do you ever try to twist his arm to get him involved anymore?
Oh, no. We tried hard in that first event when Tom was celebrating 50. And Manfred was absolutely adamant. Actually, he said, I've got a very good excuse too. I'm on a 54-date European tour.
Yeah.
And he was with the Earth Band. And, he's always had the Earth Band ever since. And in fact, since well before that, 1972 did he start with that, or 73? He's always had the Earth Band. So he's always had a very good reason not to have anything to do with the Manfreds.
We're going to play some songs to punctuate the interview, and let's go back to your very first hit single in 1964. You not only sing the song, but you also co-wrote the song 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it was done as the theme tune for one of the most pioneering pop music programmes of all time, Ready, Steady, Go, with Cathy McGowan and Keith Fordyce. What do you remember? You must remember great times of being on that incredible show, because it was so influential, wasn't it?
I remember sort of odd things, like there were times when we actually duetted or had a guest vocalist. We did a duet with Dionne Warwick.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it lasted only a few bars, but it was right at the end of the program and we were running out of time. And so, the closing credits ran over it, and then all of a sudden it was gone. But just the fact that we actually had Dionne Warwick singing with the Manfreds was wonderful. And then a bit later on, after I'd left, one of my heroes was a singer-songwriter called Oscar Brown Jr., an absolutely brilliant artist, composer and everything. I actually got to sing with him on a Ready Steady Go in 1966 after I'd left. And there were times as well when I co-presented the program with Kathy McGowan.
Yeah.
So, yes, I have good memories of it. But the initial memory was very simple. We had, before 54321, we actually had 2 failed singles. The first one was completely instrumental. All I got to do on it was play harmonica and maybe a bit of maracas as well. The second one was a song called Cock-a-Hoop. It was a rhythm and blues, Bo Diddley-based song. So it had that that sort of rhythm there. And they had us on. Obviously, they thought it was decent, so they had us on opening the show with that Cock-a-Hoop. And then either directly after that show or not long after that show, they said to us, would you guys be interested in writing a theme tune for... Because at that time they were using Walk Don't Run by the Ventures, was it? Or something like that. Anyway, they were using a hit instrumental from America. I think they thought it would be really great to have something from an English band. And so they said, would you write us a song? And we said, yeah, I'd love to. And they said, right, okay, here are the basics. You must have the same rhythm as Cock-a-Hoop. You must also have a countdown into the program.
Yeah.
After the countdown, apart from repeating the countdown if you wish, you may not have any lyrics for the first 35 seconds. That's so that there were no words going on while they were running the opening credits. And they said, apart from that, I think that's all we want. We want that. So, okay, well, they want this, they want that, and they want... So we went away and wrote 54321, which was, I think we had it done by the time we got to the place we were playing a gig that night. And so we went into the studio, recorded it. The record company liked it, and the rest is history.
Let's hear it now then. From the brand new album called Hits from the 60s, this is Manfred Mann from 1964, and a great song called 54321.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1.
This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. You join me in conversation with the legendary Paul Jones. And we talked about, Ready, Steady, Go a few moments ago, Paul. And you were part of this whole thing, which, in inverted commas, was called the swinging 60s. How swinging was it? Who were you rubbing shoulders with? And what were the venues you were hanging around, whether you were either playing or whether you were just going there for a drink and
Well, it must have been fairly swinging, because I don't remember much about it.
Well, that's a good sign.
It's a joke, they say. Well, it's a famous quote.
If you can't remember it,
if you remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember this. We were talking about Tom Jones. I don't know whether I was with a journalist or somebody, but I said, I have never met Tom Jones. I admire his voice enormously, but I have never met him. So they pulled out a photograph of me with Tom and Brian.
Yeah.
And it was
the three Joneses.
The Jones boys.
Yeah.
So that's how good my memory is of the 60s.
But did it feel that, music and pop culture was changing? Was it an exciting time and to grow up? Because you must have been just in your teenage years going into your early 20s, weren't you?
That's absolutely right. When we recorded 54321, I was 21, which was kind of elderly in those days, But in fact, our manager made us lie about our ages, which caused all sorts of mess ups. But anyway, looking back on it now, it was all kind of immensely exciting. But I came from a background of jazz. I was a jazz fan to the root. Everything from sort of King Oliver and Jelly Roll Morton through to Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis, who was already making waves in the 60s. So, in fact, the late 50s. So I got together with 6 jazzmen, Manfred, Mike Hug, and a bunch of others. And they said, well, we're going to do a rhythm and blues band. Well, my first job was to teach them some rhythm and blues because they didn't know any. Obviously, they knew the blues chord sequence because where would jazz be without that? So they knew a lot of stuff, but I had to show them some of that. So that particular moment of time when Alexis Korner was, with his Blues Incorporated, popularizing blues music or blues-based music, that was absolutely thrilling. And the Beatles, which was the other sort of big thing, was really coming from somewhere else. Yes, they could do blues. Why don't we do it in the road? And all sorts of many things that they did were blues or blues-based, but also soul-based. And they were very eclectic in their influences. And so that was a whole different thing as well. So for a while, I tried to be eclectic in my influences because of the Beatles, but it didn't work. So I just stayed with the blues.
You played for a while with a guy who was very exotically named Elmo Lewis, and you mentioned him a few moments ago because, of course, it was Brian Jones, the guitar player and founder member of the Rolling Stones. You got to know him. What kind of guy was he?
He was eccentric. People say he was difficult. I never noticed that. But then again, the basis of our relationship was very loose. We actually got together and made a cassette tape and sent it to Alexis Korner in the hope that we might get some work from him. We didn't. And many years later, I talked to Ian Stewart, the sixth Stone and Rolling piano player. I talked to him about. He said, "I heard that tape." I said, and it was. And he said, "A bit grim."
A bit grim.
but it probably wasn't Brian who was grim, and it may not have been me. There were a couple of other people on it who might have been a bit grim, but we just got together whenever we could and played. And then one day he said to me, "Right, we've just been dilettantes up until now.
Yeah.
From now on, I'm taking this thing seriously. I'm moving to London. I'm getting a flat. I'm starting a band, and I'm going to become rich and famous. Do you want to be my singer?" And I said no.
Why?
2 reasons. I knew that everybody in Alexis Korner's band, which was the band to look up to at the time, every one of them was in several other bands and in some cases had day jobs as well. Famously, Graham Bond sold Hoovers. And in fact, he won awards for being the best seller of Hoovers that year. Anyway, so people had other jobs in order to live. And I just thought Brian was being unbelievably optimistic. And I thought, okay, Brian, good luck. I wish you luck. But the other reason that I said no was I had just passed an audition to sing with a dance band. Now, you may think you turned down the Rolling Stones for a dance band. No, I turned down a band that hasn't even formed yet. The only person in it was Brian. I turned it down on grounds of too much optimism. And also the dance band, it was a dance band, fabulous musicians. Absolutely. I learned so much from those guys in so many different ways, not just musically, but in terms of sort of presentation and stage presence and all kinds of things like that.
And you've never lived to regret not being the lead vocalist on songs like Satisfaction or Sympathy for the Devil or Midnight Rambler, or the list is absolutely endless.
I have never regretted that decision. My main reason is because I have had the career which exceeded all my expectations. And the secondary reason was that if I had joined that band with Brian, it never would have become the Rolling Stones. Although an important foundation stone or plank of the Rolling Stones was the songwriting abilities of Mick Jagger
and Keith.
And I said to Mick, "Are you writing songs yet?" Because all they had done so far was covers.
Yeah, R&B covers.
And even we had, started to write songs unsuccessfully as yet. But he said, no, I can't write songs. I said, "Mick, you will. You honestly will. And you may as well start now." I've written some lovely songs, but I've never written anything like one of the Rolling Stones hits.
We're going to hear one of your songs now, and it's a song that was written, in fact, by Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich. It was originally recorded by an American band called The Exciters from the brand new album, which is called Hits from the 60s. This is Manfred Mann and their first US and #1 single, Do-Wah, Diddy Diddy.
There she was, just walking down the street singing.
This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. You join me in conversation with Paul Jones of Manfred Mann. They have just released a great album called Hits from the 60s, which does exactly what it says in the tin. It's got all their classic tracks from the early 60s right up until 1969. And I've got to ask you about this, Paul, because, once upon a time, you found yourself, I think it was in Abbey Road Studios in London, with the legendary Burt Bacharach, because they had been brought on board to write some songs for a movie called What's New Pussycat, which starred Peter Sellers and Ursula Andress and Peter O'Toole. Of course, the theme song was recorded and was a smash hit song for Tom Jones. You guys recorded a track called My Little Red Book, which I think you once described as being some of the most clever and creative lyrics that you ever had to sing. What was it like being in the studio with a guy who was such a musical genius, even in those early days?
Well, the studio part of it was later in the process. We'd been sent a demo acetate of the song. We knew it was going to be from a film, but we didn't know anything about the film. Although I later discovered that the film had mostly been made by that point. But we also had, before the actual session at Abbey Road, we had had a rehearsal with Burt. I don't remember Hal David being there that day, but anyway, Angie Dickinson. And we had a rehearsal in Burt's hotel room. And it was all looking very good. And so we all turned up at the studio with our producer, John Burgess, who was nominally the producer of what we did. But as far as Burt Bacharach is concerned, I'm the producer.
Yeah.
So we get into the studio and we start recording the song. And Burt is not happy with the piano part, which of course is Manfred. I won't go through the sort of procedure, but it was very sort of gentle and persuasive.
But he was a hard taskmaster, wasn't he?
Yes. He wasn't anywhere near as hard as his wife or girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't know what state they were at. Oh boy, she told us off bitterly. She said, Burt works his toes off, to get this thing right. And the least you can do is to play it well. And all, Anyway, we did the best we could. But what happened was Burt played on the track.
Yeah.
I think Manfred has freely admitted as much. It was kind of interesting because our record of it is on the new compilation. But a few weeks, 2-3 weeks after that session at Abbey Road, I had a call requiring my presence at a recording studio at Pi Records near Marble Arch in London. And I turn up there sort of with a bit of a suspicion of what's going to happen. Basically, there's a studio full of musicians, none of whom is a member of Manfred Mann, and I'm required to sing My Little Red Book again. I sang it, I think it went to something like 19 takes, and at take 19, I said to Burt, Burt, I am so sorry. He said, what are you sorry about? I said, I'm taking so long to get this vocal the way you want it. He said, 19? We regularly go to 30 with Dionne Warwick. So I went, okay, it's fine, I'll sing it again. So I sang it again. And it came out on the soundtrack album of the film with my voice double-tracked. So in other words, 2 takes that I had done simultaneously. And it's completely different from the hit record version by Manfred Mann. In his autobiography, which is called Anyone Who Had a Heart, and Why Not?
Which I've read.
He said, I recorded 2 versions of My Little Red Book. And Manfred Mann was on both of them.
Brilliant.
Now, the only person on both of them was Paul Jones. My suspicion is that he didn't know who anybody was in the band.
Yeah.
And he thought the singer must be called Manfred Mann, surely.
Let's hear the version that's on the brand new album then. Once again, it's called Hits from the 60s by Manfred Mann. And this is the group with My Little Red Book. This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. We're talking to Paul Jones of Manfred Mann. The band have just released a great new compilation album called Hits from the 60s. And Paul, you face a kind of crossroads in your life when, in the summer of 1966, you decided to leave the band and go off and kind of stretch your legs creatively. Mike Diablo took over and, he sings, and a whole string of hits that came after that. Did you just want to try something different because you moved into acting? Over the years, you moved into radio. In 1976, you were the original Juan Perón on the soundtrack album Evita. You were in the Sweeney. I was watching TV about 6 weeks ago, and there at 1 o'clock in the morning, you were playing the former boxer who turned a robber, and I said, there's Paul Jones. I mean, was it just a chance to do other things?
No, none of that was in my mind. Absolutely none of it. Not even the film Privilege, which was sort of the first thing. No, what was in my mind was the opposite of trying something new. The band were trying something new. Every time we went into the studio, the swingometer between blues and rhythm and blues, which is where we started, and out-and-out pop music, was getting closer to the out-and-out pop music. And I actually left the band in order to pursue a life in rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out that way at all.
But it turned out incredibly successful because I remember seeing a documentary a while ago, and I think I'm correct in saying that you starred in the original stage version of Rising Damp. You played Alan opposite, Don Warrington as Philip, and most crucially, Leonard Rossiter as Rigsby. What was that like? Because it became such a big show. Why did you do the stage show, but you didn't do the TV version? Why was that?
Well, the stage show was called Banana Box, which was a real rap on the knuckles for racists.
Yeah.
But if you don't know why, find out from somebody why the Banana Box is. I really enjoyed doing that show. Bear in mind that Leonard Rossiter was absolutely sensational. Don Warrington was equally so. And of course, she didn't start it, but Frances de la Tour was absolutely magnificent in that part. And so I was so happy. But, frankly, the tour did not do well. It was okay, but we get to the end of the tour, and that's it, finished. We all go our separate ways. And then a few weeks later, my agent rings me and he says, they're going to make the Banana Box into a television series. Do you want your old part back? And I thought, it didn't work as a play on the stage. It's not going to work on TV. And I said, no. I'm good at saying no.
Yeah.
And so I said no. But hey, the world, or at least the television watching part of it, should jolly well be grateful to me, because Becky was absolutely
fantastic. You've done so much over the course of your incredible career. You've been a radio presenter. You presented the Blues Show for something like 32 years. And, Manfred Mann's music has become such a part of British pop history. We're going to finish now with the song, which I guess is my favourite Manfred Mann song, and it's one that you sing the lead vocals on. It got to #1 in the UK in 1966, and it's a song that's kind of grown arms and legs and almost taken on a life of its own. And I always think you can judge a great song by the calibre of the artists who have covered it or interpreted it. And we're talking only about people like the Everly Brothers, Gene Pitney, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Elvis Costello, and last but by no means least, Bruce Springsteen and Rod Stewart. So, what is it that makes Pretty Flamingo so special to all of them and to you?
Mark Barkan, who wrote it.
Yeah.
He was a very good songwriter, but he never got into that sort of same echelon as Goffin and King or, those. It was a good song, but the thing is, all the records we had done from Do Wah Diddy up to Come Tomorrow, they were all from my record collection. Do-a-diddy, sha-la-la, Oh No, Not My Baby, Come Tomorrow. They were just records that I loved, and I loved the songs, and I thought, let's do it. Then in between those and Pretty Flamingo was a Bob Dylan song, If You Gotta Go, Go Now.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked that, but it too was going away from the blues. And so here comes John Burgess with this song. Now, the group has brought to John Burgess all the ones that became hits, single hits now. And now here he is bringing one to the group. And I listened to it. I don't know who sang the demo, but it was one of those little 7-inch acetates. And I said, "Oh, John, you're losing your grip. That song will never get anywhere." He said, "Do me a favor, sing it once." So I thought, okay, how would Sam Cooke sing this song? And I thought, I'll just do it as much like Sam Cooke. I haven't got a voice anything like Sam Cooke's voice, but he was my favourite singer. And I just thought, I'll try and sound as much like him as I can. And I sang it, and it went to number 1.
What goes through your mind when, somebody either taps you on the shoulder and calls you up and said, the boss, Bruce Springsteen, has just sung Pretty Flamingo, and he said that Manfred Mann were one of his favourite bands for the whole of the 60s, and this was one of the greatest songs that he heard when he was growing up. I mean, that must be incredibly flattering, is it?
Not really, because it's the song that they've taken, not my performance of it. Mind you, I think Bruce likes a lot of what the Manfreds did, especially in my era. But no, I don't really. And also, I'll have to say this to you, Billy, I don't get any royalties from their performances of that song. So I like it when people say, "Oh, we're doing a song of yours."
You don't get much cash, but you get the kudos, and that's what's important. Paul Jones, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you. You're on the Manfred Mann 60th anniversary tour. You look so cool and so good that I think, we could come back and talk to you again when it's on the Manfred Mann 70th anniversary tour. Thank you very much for joining us in the programme, and we will play out now with a song which got to number 1 in 1966. This is a song that, again, he almost turned down. This is Paul Jones, Manfred Mann and Pretty Flamingo. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
On our block, all of the guys call. I will, yes I will, I'll make a man.
It was absolutely fantastic to catch up with a real 60s legend at the Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow a couple of weeks back. It was a real pleasure, as you probably heard from my voice, talking to the legendary Paul Jones, still touring with the Manfreds, celebrating their 60th anniversary. And as you heard me say at the very end of the conversation, I would not bet against him celebrating the 70th anniversary of that incredible band.